Welcome to TrulyFit, the online fitness marketplace connecting pros and clients through unique fitness business software.
Yeah, Dan, it's been a little bit. Thanks for coming back on the podcast. Let's catch up a little bit before anything else. Remind the listeners like who you are and what it is that you do in health and fitness, and then tell me a little bit about your business ventures and what you've been up to.
Okay, yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me back. I'm definitely excited for the conversation. So my name is Dan Elwood. I'm a personal trainer and holistic lifestyle coach and co-founder of my business Momentum Strength and Wellness, where it's actually my girlfriend and I run the business together. She's a nutritionist, I'm a coach, and we work with clients together to kind of get a little bit of everything, working on lifestyle interventions, training, diet, mindset, basically all the coaching things. We kind of usually take a kind of more holistic approach. And then we also recently launched a podcast as well, the Deep Life podcast, which is, we've got I think probably by the time this comes out, 20 something episodes out, and that can be found anywhere, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's quite the journey starting a podcast. As I know, I actually just did a podcast with somebody it'll be out in a month, and he runs something called Average Joe's Fitness Media. And it's funny, he sort of does what I do, where he interviews people in the fitness and health realm about their businesses and about what they're doing and trends and fads and stuff. But we had a whole podcast just about like what it takes to start a podcast, especially like a fitness and health podcast, because there's a lot to it. And it's like, is it worth it for everybody, both from like a financial investment or like a time investment? And like, what are all like sort of the tricks to the trade and like things to know going into it? So it's, I think that's fun for people because, I think people are somewhat nervous to start it because it is a little bit nerve wracking, but it doesn't really take that much money, certainly not. And time, everything takes a time investment. It just depends on how much of how big of a percentage of the pie you want that to be in your day and in your business model.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like the nerve-wracking part is kind of what makes it exciting. Like I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would, just kind of getting thrown into the fire a little bit and having to develop new skills and learn how to interview people, learn how to talk and not sound like an idiot. So it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I think people, if I had to name like one or two, let's just name three things that people think about a podcast and they're totally wrong. Number one, it's very easy to get popular guests or big guests, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, they're probably not going to pitch you, meaning like they're there for themselves, if that makes sense. So like if you get somebody on your podcast, let's say they have 70,000 Instagram followers and there's some like famous like fitness celebrity, they're not going to maybe promote the podcast even on their socials because they don't want to give you light and shine, but it still looks good on your end for getting them towards your podcast. I think people don't know that. Number two, it doesn't cost a lot. You can get a mic and have Zoom sessions and go that route. And number three, again, from the time perspective, it's only as much time as you want. You can do one every 2 weeks and not spend a lot of time on it, or you can spend 4 or 5 hours a day building your podcast. It's just how quickly you want to build a business like anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked, via email. Obviously, we always catch up on things, and I'll catch you up on whatever's going on with TrulyFit at some point in this conversation, I'm sure. Okay. But there's a lot of things trending in the fitness and health world. But I thought it would be really good. Something you pitched was talking about sort of athletes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like you and me, it's more than you than me. You were a collegiate athlete, but people who have played sports their whole life and dedicated themselves to being physical, sometimes they fall off the wagon, for lack of a better term. And then what it takes for them to get back into fitness, maybe from both a psychological perspective and a physiological perspective. I'm sure you work with some of these people, so you can sort of like start this introduction any way you want. Yeah.
So I think just exactly like you just said, I think that for so many of us that grew up playing sports, it was just a no-brainer. It was a given that you were gonna train every day. You're gonna eat the foods you needed to eat. You were gonna prioritize getting sleep, taking care of yourself. And then kind of unfortunately, I think along the way, a lot of people, by the time their athletic career ends, they're pretty burnt out. And athletics tends to lean toward, a lack of balance anyway, because it's extreme and you're going for extreme performance, not necessarily longevity. So it makes sense that a lot of people would burn out at the end of their career. But then unfortunately, they just stop cold turkey. And I've seen so many guys I played football with, for example, like great college athletes who were in unbelievable shape, looked amazing. And then the day their career ended, they stopped training, but they kept eating the same way. They kept kind of almost like living the same lifestyle without the same performance output and the same training.
Why is that? What's your analysis of why?
I think a lot of it is, like I said, burnout. I think that there's this desire, the desire goes away when you push too hard for too long on something that maybe like you stop caring as much as you did when you were younger. So as you get older into like, college and even professional sports, a lot of times the passion goes away before you're done playing. So I think when it's like you have the opportunity to be like, all right, I'm done. I'm never going back into a weight room again. Even if you're, eventually you're going to want to get back in the gym, but at that point, you're so far behind the 8 ball. And then another thing that I think is huge psychologically is when we'll say like for 18 years of your life, you have a plan. There's somebody telling you, there's going to be the next season, what your off-season training is going to be. You basically show up and there's a workout for you, or where you're going to be at what time. When that plan gets taken away sort of abruptly, you can feel really lost. So then there's still guys who maybe will keep working out, women as well, will keep training, but just not the same way. They don't really have the progression to their training anymore. They don't have the drive that they had. So they're just sort of in the gym going through the motions. And then you kind of end up on, whatever path it is, where if you're just I'll just spend some time on the treadmill, or I'll just go bench press every day because I want to do what's fun rather than training your whole body in the same way and thinking about it in the same way.
That's a great analysis. And you obviously being an athlete, because it's intrinsically in you, and then also all of your surroundings, like you said, between your friends and your buddies who play. And I'll add 2 more points to this, which you can agree or disagree with. I think there's a relationship one has with whatever food you have with, exercise. And I think as an athlete, because you've been told you have to be in the weight room at 6 a.m. You have to perform this way. You have to write these things down. A lot of times, high level athletes had I would call sort of a negative relationship with exercise, right? Whereas if you're, let's say, a 22-year-old girl who's only maybe played, softball in high school, and then you get into like CrossFit or weightlifting, and you're doing it on your own, sort of like it's like autonomous decision. Like, I want to go do this, right? Then you have a good relationship with exercise. But if you're forced to do it, you have a bad relationship. And I'll add one more thing to that, is that I trained an ex-tight end for the University of Georgia, and he was just so beat up. That's why he had to take years off, right? He had 4 knee surgeries, and he had arthritis everywhere, and his fingers were all messed up. So it's like, that's a part of it is just like you said, your body takes also like the physical burnout toll, not just the psychological.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's something. So I'd say like, just like with, you hear said a lot with like investing, where it's like the best time to invest your money was 10 years ago. The next best time is right now. I think I was lucky because personally, I made a decision like my last year playing college football. I decided when this is over, because I love training, I'm going to keep training like an athlete so that but it's going to be on my own terms. So I can take all this energy and put it into training exactly the way I want to train. So I was able to kind of benefit from this compounding interest, essentially, of all the years that I had put in. And I just changed it. I ate less. I worked, did more like circuit type training for a little while. I lost a bunch of weight because I didn't need to be as big as possible anymore. I was a college fullback. I got up to about 235 pounds, and I don't really have the frame for that. Where now I walk around at 195 and I feel so much healthier. So I had this sort of progression from being like 230 to 195 that I did intentionally, where I lost weight on purpose. I trained. But I think if I didn't have that mindset where it's like, all right, I'm just going to stop, then you lose a lot of the momentum you had built, a lot of the gains you had made, and it can go really quickly in the other direction. But yeah, you can always get it back, which is awesome. And you can always get back into training
I like what you said earlier about, when sports training is so hyper focused, almost too much so, right? And especially you played what I would consider a collision sport, right? There are impact sports like basketball and soccer. Football is a collision sport. It's another level. And there's so much emphasis on training, overtraining maybe in certain ways. And again, you're training for the sport as opposed to just like enjoying your workout. Like for somebody to just walk into a gym, not have a plan and go, today I feel like playing 2 hours of basketball. Or like, hey, I feel like just doing some sort of like pull-up, push-up workout and then leaving, right? Just having no plan and enjoying the fitness rather than like being so structured.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly like I was saying, like it was really, really hard for me to gain weight and to carry that weight and hold it. So I needed to be obsessive about, eating tons of food, getting tons of training volume in, putting on weight, which is out of alignment with my health and longevity and the sustainability of training. So I had probably like beat up joints just from the training. And then on top of that, how beat up you are just from playing football for so long, that it was really hard to have the desire to lift heavy for a while. And like I said, so I personally and like kind of naturally transitioned toward a lot of lighter weight stuff for a little while that my body could handle, and was able to like sort of maintain and build back, like maintain some of my strength, but build back joint health and movement quality and all those things that can go really, really bad really quick if you finish an athletic career and you've got maybe like your knee is bothering you and you don't address it because you're like, I can't deal with it. I don't want to be in the weight room anymore. I don't want to take care of my body. So you don't take care of that knee. And eventually it turns into then you have a bad knee and a bad back because you're walking poorly and you're reinforcing bad movement patterns. So that physical toll that the sport took on you just keeps getting worse and worse and worse because it's not addressed and you're just adding to the dysfunction.
Yeah. There's I talked about this in a lot of podcasts, but there's a cost to everything you do, especially in fitness. And there can be a metabolic cost. Let's say I go run 10 miles. I burn a lot of calories. That's a positive metabolic cost. But what's the structural cost, right? From all the pounding on the pavement of my knees and my ankles and my hips, is there a structural cost? And that's, especially for someone like you, if you're trying to gain weight and you're lifting heavy in this sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque, like 4, 6, 8 repetition range doing Olympic lifts, there is a structural cost. We know this, right? We've seen bodybuilders, we've seen football players, and in the 50s, in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they're dealing with spinal fusions and nonstop surgeries, and there's some problems because they're not moving in all planes of motion, worried about their health. And I think, this might be a sidebar, and I want to, get your view on this because I talk about this a lot on this podcast, and I've even been a guest on 2 separate podcasts talking about this one conversation, Dan. And a lot of this, not for athletes as much, but for the general population who deal with the same problem as these athletes, is vanity, because vanity supersedes health, right? So they're willing to do anything in the lifting realm to make sure that they look good, even if it hurts their sort of overall health component. Do you see that with like some of your clients and people you work with?
I do, for sure. And just like you said, like all across general population too, because the aesthetics always bring you in the door. Like, I think that's why there's very few people who begin training and it's not because they want to look better.
Yeah.
So I think, absolutely. And I think people are willing to do a lot, whether it's just like the monotony of like hours on a treadmill because they think that's what's going to do it, or, all the supplements and whatever they're taking, a diet, eating nowhere near enough, or eating just not the right foods because they found some crazy diet that got a movie star jacked for a role, whatever it is. Yeah. People will go to the extremes to look a certain way, but not a lot of people, at least out the gate, want to go to the extremes to like feel better and express health through their body, to be healthier, to be, just well for a lifetime.
Totally. And I think part of that, Dan, and what you don't know. So like some people don't know their baseline. They think they feel great now, but they have no idea, right? They're not sleeping properly. They don't obviously have the right micro and macronutrient sort of combination in their body and the stress levels and the exercise and all that. So they don't even know that's a possibility that they can feel light years better. So that's why they cling to the vanity. And you said it perfectly. And I always say that very similar thing where vanity is the gateway into fitness, right? It's like, oh, hey, I want to lose a little belly fat, or hey, I want to get big pecs so I can get the girl next door. And then eventually you learn, whether it's through injuries, like maybe someone like you did, right, in football, or through it's just old age, that no, I need to sort of transform my exercise regimen and prescription into overall health and wellness, and then make vanity just like a secondary effect that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is that. If you can step back and look at the big picture, the aesthetics will always come when you're taking care of your body, when you're doing the right things, because it is looking good is an expression of health. It is a reflection of, what you are. So a lot of times you can get you can look good in the short term, but you're really robbing yourself of health and aesthetics in the future, and creating, whether it's metabolic dysfunction or just burnout and wear and tear on your joints. Where I love stepping way back, taking the big picture approach and trying to figure do you want to lose 20 pounds, or do you want to lose 20 pounds and keep it off for the rest of your life? Do you want to look the part, or do you want to be the part? Because when you are the part, you're going to look the part as well. But it's a little bit probably a slower process, but it's a long lasting process. That's why we named our company Momentum. It's like, if you can make one good choice today, then tomorrow the next good choice is going to be a little bit easier. And the next good choice is going to be a little easier. And then you realize that the choices you're making are bigger, and the impact you're making is bigger. And all of a sudden you're who you want to be. You're living the life you want to live and looking the way you want to look. And
yeah, that's exactly right. That's well said. And that's going to lead into my next question here is that I preach the same thing you just said, where going 0 to 60 is a bad idea. Someone goes, hey, I have never run before in my life. I'm going to run a marathon next month. Bad idea, right? If someone says, hey, I've actually never been on any sort of strict regimented diet, I'm 100 pounds overweight, I have no self-control, I'm going to instantly go on keto. Bad idea, right? So you have to take these small steps. But this is my question to you, is that someone like you, to get to a level of being a college athlete, you kind of have to be a little bit above and beyond. Some people would say crazy, very alpha, be ready to go all out. And do you think it's a problem to kind of slow these athletes down, and when they reintegrate, just be like, hey, this isn't about you focusing hyper on these goals. It's about just getting slowly back into health.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's the taking that sort of the discipline and passion that you had for sports performance, and steering that discipline toward health and longevity. So it's let's slow way down. Let's fix your movement quality, because like I said, you're going to be out of balance. No matter what it is, if you were a track athlete and you run the 400, you're always running one direction on the track. Your body's going to have imbalances because you're just taking left turns. So there's little things like that. You could be in great shape, but eventually that's going to catch up with you. Your knees or your hips or your back is going to start to hurt. So we can pull way back. We can take the same disciplined approach, but let's work on, getting your feet as healthy as possible, because everything starts from the ground up. And let's get your joints stacked and moving properly so you can carry your body weight without causing injury. And then, just kind of slowly build back up in a way that is sustainable and can last forever.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that my brain's going here. And I also think, because we talked about that weird relationship with exercise, right? So let's go ahead and say I was a college fullback like you were. Yeah. I imagine my sort of exercise prescription was all right, you got a bench, you have to squat, you have to deadlift, you have to do split jerks. And this is what you're doing here. And everything's very power and this oriented. All exercise is good exercise, provided, like you said, that you're working on accessory muscles and that you're not overdoing things and you're understanding sort of the full body perspective. I think these athletes just have to find something that they like.
Yeah.
They don't have to go back into the heavy lifting, right? They can find yoga and basketball, or body weight and Tai Chi. You can find something that you enjoy so that you have a healthier relationship with it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Exactly. I think you find what you want to do, whether it's just training a little differently, or like you said, it could be like complete change from squats and deadlifts to yoga and basketball. If you get excited and want to do it, it's going to help you. And then I think there's something really, really special that happens when you start to tap back into that like joy you had for training as a child, or like as a young, like, well, even as like a high school athlete, when it's like you were just completely obsessed with moving your body and kind of sort of like expressing yourself physically and showing off what you can do. And when you can get back into that, because I think a lot of times too, as you start to get older, we push that stuff to the side and like almost like that's for kids. Like training, it doesn't need to be fun. Like we need to focus on work and making a living. And if going to the gym, I'm going to punish myself for the beers I drank on Saturday night, or for that pizza we ate. It's like, no, like it doesn't have to be about punishing yourself. Even if you have some of that in your subconscious because you had coaches yelling at you and a lot of training maybe was a punishment. It's like, you don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to beat yourself up. You need to find ways to release that joy and get excited, because then you're going to be consistent. Then you're going to train every day. And it doesn't have to be 2 hours a day. It can be 20, 30 minutes a day. That adds up really, really fast when you have the frequency and consistency for a few years.
Totally. And I always wonder, you have to walk a fine line in fitness and health and nutrition, all these areas between subjective and objective. What I mean by that is some things are measurable and some things aren't. And you need to look inward and be like, how do I feel? How does this clothes fit? How do I wake up in the morning? But there also needs to be some measurable things, right? And I know with athletes, sometimes everything was measurable. It's like, okay, I benched 350, I squatted this, I ran a 4.6, I was able to, lateral do this. And it's like, you got to maybe sort of get rid of that mindset a little bit. And it should just be, okay, I can go to the gym. I don't have to have a structured regimen plan. I don't have to beat myself up for not maintaining certain goals. And I should just be able to check in with myself and be like, I feel good. That's fine.
Yeah. I had a conversation on one of our podcasts with one of my former teammates who's also coaching. Shout out to Corey Thomas from Vitality Human Performance.
Nice.
But we were having the discussion that, like, as football players, but I say football players specifically, but most athletes, it's the same thing. You almost need to like train yourself to not feel in the same way, because you need to be able to be miserable and still show up and put in the work. There's not, like, from the day that you report to camp in football in the summer till the day the season ends, a day doesn't go by that you're not sore and beat up and in pain. Every guy on the football field has some sort of injury, and you just, put your head down and go.
Because you don't have a choice, because the next day we have a conditioning regimen, and then we're hitting and we're doing lineman one-on-one drills. And like, this is just laid out for you. So you have to suck it up. Right. But we don't have to now. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or somebody's going to take your job, or you're going to lose the game. But now there's no one coming for you. Like, not in the same way. There's no one's going to take your job because you took a day off or were a little bit slower. You're not going to lose the game because you slowed down. So the goal needs to shift from the immediate to like today to like the long term. How can I sustain this forever? And a lot of it is getting back in touch with your feelings and understanding that, like, I got my squat from 350 to 405, but my back hurts. Then that probably wasn't a good thing. But just if you're measuring it by the amount of weight you squatted, it was a win. But if you're moving worse and you're not able to train for the next 2 weeks because your back hurts, that wasn't a good day. So like you said, it's a balance of the qualitative and the quantitative, because it's also an improvement if you squat the same amount of weight, but it feels better. If your joints are better, like you wake up the next day and, oh, my back doesn't hurt, my knees don't hurt. That might be a bigger win than, I squatted 25 more pounds.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Or pain or the same pain.
Exactly. And, just to add to that, I had a sports medicine doctor. His name is Dr. Ahmad Al-Galway. He's actually a rheumatologist and a sports medicine doctor. That's a lot of schooling to do both.
Yeah.
And he's on the podcast. I think it's coming out next week. And we talk about rheumatology and different sports medicine things. But he had mentioned in the podcast, which I thought was a great point, and I've never stated it this way. It's sort of along the lines of what you were just saying, Dan. We should be better lifters as we're older. Better, right? Our form should be better. Everything should be cleaner. Like, you might not lift as much, but you should be way better. Not only because you're in tune with your body, but just because you have thousands more repetitions than you were before. And I think that's not always like a focus for people, but it should be. And it's different for me and you. We're trainers, right? So like, part of what we do, my clients used to call them the money moves. They would say, why I start working out with you, Steve? I said, why? I said, like, my reputation, word of mouth. Sometimes it was yes, but usually it was like, oh, we saw you doing something in the gym and like you were just so smooth, right? Like, we're like, we couldn't believe you can do that. It's like, well, and I don't even notice, and you don't even notice, because we've done these things 20,000 times, right? How many times have you done just like a reverse lunge with your knee into the air, right? It's like, and you're not thinking that it's even difficult. And I think as these athletes transition back in, they should think of it in an athletic way where it's like, I need to be awesome at this. It doesn't need to be, the weight doesn't need to be high. It should look smooth. It should feel good. I should look good from afar. And I think that would help sort of like the alphas who want to be good at stuff.
Yeah. It's just changing the goalpost, removing the goalposts, but you're still progressing towards a goal. You're still getting better at something. You're still expressing your body and your expertise and your capabilities. It's really interesting. You just kind of reminded me of this, but I think, like, even if you don't know anything about training or like kinesiology or movements, biomechanics, when you see it, and it's ingrained in us just as humans. When we see like good human movement, it's like, wow, that's impressive. That's beautiful. Even if you can't explain why your lunge looks better than, some other guy in the gym who's never done a lunge before and is kind of making it up as he goes, and his feet are collapsing and his back is rounded. When you see it done right, it's like, okay, that's what it is. So it's good to have that standard in mind, and you can be that for other people so that they see like beautiful movement, because then everybody wants to move better.
Totally. Yeah. Great point. It's in, and I hope everyone wants to move better. That should be the ultimate goal, right? Not just the weight, moving better. And I also found, you need to work, you being personal trainers, all of us, we need to work with our clients' personalities. Not everyone's the same, right? You might work like now we're talking about athletes, and athletes have a lot of same tendencies, but they're not all the same, right? There's different types of athletes. And I think for those athletes who have maybe a bad relationship with the weight room, they're sick of it, right? They spent all their time in the weight room. You as a trainer, it's up to you. And if you don't have the skill set to pass them on to someone else, to find another modality for them. So I have a boxing and kickboxing background. So right now, for instance, I'm working with someone who was a high-level soccer player and just hates the weight room because they had a lot of leg stuff he was to do in the weight room, but we'll just do 45 minutes of boxing, right? And, he's in his 40s now, so he's not looking for anything like exceptional. He's just looking for overall health and wellness and heart health and moving around. And he loves to just box for 45 minutes. And that's okay, right? You can box for 45 minutes for the rest of your life and be in good shape 3 or 4 days a week. And I think finding these different modalities to challenge your body, there's something for you out there to do.
Yes, there is. Yeah. For anybody who thinks that they don't like training, that if you have a body, there's a way that you can move it that's going to bring you joy and get you excited about doing it more. I think boxing's an unbelievable workout.
Yeah.
Cardio, just movement. And that's what it is. Like, as you get good, you can work at, it's like skill acquisition, movement quality. And when you see somebody who really knows what they're doing, boxing, it's a beautiful thing. I think there's so much carryover to whatever that thing is that you can find that can get you excited to train again. Do it. I think that's sort of the best advice I can give anybody who's like burnt out and doesn't want to get back in the gym.
Yeah. And anybody who has injuries, that's just not a good excuse, because those, like, you're just going to fall further down this rabbit hole of not being able to do anything. And it's, I feel bad for anybody who has injuries. I'm one of these people. It's like, it's like what do they call it? Like the guy flu. Like, if I have like 3 beers, I can't like walk for the next 2 days. Like my body just like doesn't like, I don't do any sort of sickness, hangover, or the actual flu, or if I'm injured, I'm like depressed, literally depressed. So I can only imagine what it's like for someone who has like a really big surgery and they've just like fallen off the wagon, so to speak, and they're just so worried about it, but it's only going to get worse. Right. And then we know that you become deconditioned, and then it's even harder to get back into shape. So eventually, like you said, Dan, with the finances, it's like, when was the best time to invest? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Right now. You have to just say, I'll start slow, but I have to start today.
Yeah. And that's it. Like start really slow. You don't need to overdo it. It could literally just be like a light yoga session where you're moving your body, you're getting the blood flowing, you're getting the lymph flowing, because that's going to help everything else recover. That's going to help your body kind of become more of itself again. Because there's really not like very few, if any, injuries that actually get better from rest in the long term. Like maybe after traumatic injury, you might need to wait a few days, but it's almost like the sooner you can get something moving again, the more life you're going to bring back to it, the more resources you're going to bring into those muscles and bones and joints, and allow your body to heal itself. So it's like, just do it. Just get your body moving in some way, and then start small. And then, like I said before, I always say, like, build momentum. Next, it's just progressive training. Next week is going to be a little bit more than this week was, and the following week's going to be more. And 2 months from now, it's going to be hard to remember back when you were just sitting on the couch wishing you could train again. But if you don't do anything, you're going to be in even worse shape in 2 months.
Yeah. And it's, I had a conversation, and I was going to tell you about this off camera, but I'll just tell you about it on camera because I don't care. There's an app I think you'll really like called Wisdom. And basically someone like you who has, an expertise in fitness and health and mindset and all of these areas can go on. It's sort of Clubhouse-esque. I don't know if you know about it, but you'll go on and you could just start a topic, type in a few tags, and then just start talking, and people hop in and they ask you questions and they hop out and they do the sorts of things. And you'd be great on it. And, both of you, obviously.
Yeah. We got on recently and have been using it. Go on.
Yeah. So I was just talking to someone on Wisdom, and we were talking about how important injury prevention is, but how unfortunate it is that it doesn't matter. It seems like what you tell people, even someone like you who's like been through the grind. Like if you were to make this speech, I feel like to, let's say, incoming freshmen in college, you go back to your college and you're speaking, and they're like, you could speak about whatever you want, Dan. And you go, I want to tell you guys about how important injury prevention is. Like maybe 10% of those kids would take it seriously, but like until you actually get injured and until you're dealing with all of these things, you just don't have the foresight to think about it. And it's so important for the general population to not train like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and to focus on their movement patterns, and to focus on overall health and wellness, and make vanity secondary. Because and even if we reach one person, it's important. When you get injured and when you have to take those steps backwards, it is a horrible snowball effect, right? Especially if you're older, if you're 60 years old and you get injured, and now you're in a wheelchair, and before you know it, you're deconditioned, and now you have type 2 diabetes, and now you have COPD, and then you're dead. So injury prevention, there's nothing more important than that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, they say the best ability is availability. Keep yourself able to keep moving and doing things, and you're gonna benefit so much just from the accumulation of all the years of training, even if it's not crazy going hard, than you would if you worked really, really hard and then hurt yourself, and take one step forward, 2 steps back, and then train really, really hard, hurt yourself, and miss 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And it's like every time you try to come back, it gets harder and harder.
Do you want to transition into working specifically with more former athletes? Is that something you're already doing? If it happens, it happens.
It's something that's been it seems to be happening on its own. I've been working with a lot of athletes lately, and a lot of people sort of in the same situation where they maybe like stopped training when their sports ended, or they just sort of maybe transition more toward business. And we're going to I'm going to take this same passion and drive, but I'm going to put it into my business.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you notice that, as the business got better, the training dropped off.
Yeah.
Now And now they're successful and everything's going well, except they're 20 pounds overweight and their back hurts.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you have this background, you have this understanding of movement. Like it's not going to go away. You're going to be able to find that. You have this understanding of discipline. You know what it takes to be successful. So let's take that. So sort of like I said earlier, like it doesn't have to be 2 hours a day, but if you can take that discipline to show up and do 30 minutes every day, you can slowly get yourself back on track. And it's so exciting to watch people who kind of thought they were just sort of done with training, or like, it's what I did when I was a kid, and watch them sort of come back to life a little bit and watch the pain go away. All of a sudden they'll show up and be like, this is like, my back doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so much more exciting to me than watching them lift heavy weights.
Totally. Yeah.
But then it's also exciting to see someone like, deadlift 315, and I haven't done that in 10 years. And it's like, that's also like, that's so exciting. So yeah, I'm not intentionally looking for athletes, but they seem to be finding me, and I really enjoy working with them. And yeah, I think it's good to like people that I can relate to.
Yeah, totally.
I love training anybody, but yeah, with an athlete, it can be exciting.
I don't think this is personal trainers. I know a lot of us, I hate it. I'm sure you do. I hate being salesy. It's just, it doesn't come natural for me. I don't like any of the salesmanship type stuff, but if we're actually trying to help our clients, you do have to find their pain points, whatever that is, to drive them to fitness. So maybe it is that, they have 4 kids and they love their kids, and you have to say, hey, listen, Bob, your back is screwed up. You've gained 60 pounds and now you're pre-diabetic, about to be, type 2 diabetes. Like if you want to see your kids, play lacrosse in college and go visit them across the country, the clock's ticking. You have to start to get back in shape, right? Find your clients' pain points and what they are. So what I see a lot of athletes do, it's funny you say the business thing. That's the first most thing you see, right? They transfer that into business. Mm-hmm. The second thing is golf. They get addicted to golf, right? Yep. So what I try to do to some of those people say, you want to be better at golf? Well, guess what? You got to be better at fitness and health, right? Yeah. You have to be more flexible. You have to be able to rotate better. You have to be able to ground through your legs and engage your glutes and smaller accessory muscles in your legs, right? You also need stamina, because swinging a club 90, 100 times, right? If you're warm up swinging, maybe you have 150 swings on the 18th hole. It's much harder than it is on the first hole. You think you're getting that club up to the same area, but you're not, because your lats are tired and your traps are tired and your rhomboids lifting that up. So we have to get you back in shape, and it's going to help your golf, whatever it is. Sometimes you just have to be salesy to help people. Yeah.
But yeah, you can tap into that sort of innate competitiveness, and golf is great, but you also don't want to go out and lose. You don't want to be the worst guy in your foursome every weekend.
Yeah.
So if you can be better down the back 9, you're going to be a better golfer, and that's going to come from ease of movement.
Yeah.
So you're not fighting yourself. You can actually transition force through your body naturally and kind of move with your body, move with your joints. So I think that's a really good example.
Yeah. And obviously as trainers, we know enough where we can demonstrate exercises that would, sort of be ideal for that movement. Right. And nothing has to be, I look at personal training as an art. I'm an artist. I'm not a scientist. Right. So like when I look at the floor as my easel, and, all of the machines are sort of like my colors, and it's an art, right? So like sometimes, of course there's science behind it, right? There's kinesiology of the body, but sometimes just to go, oh, there's the golf swing. I could pick up some sort of ball and replicate that swing and do a slam, like sort of like a throw slam against the wall, right? And I'm focused on my client's hip rotation and how they release the ball and where their feet are and how they feel in the motion, right? You can be creative with your clients and think up exercises. You don't have to just have a golfer background necessarily in order to help your client.
Yeah. You don't need to go search for the study that tells how you generate more force on your golf swing. You can see it, and you can see, like exactly you said, like if you can't rotate your hips, you're not going to be able to generate enough power. So you're not going to have that long drive that you want. But then also, if that hip's not rotating, something's going to have to rotate. So that's going to come into your back. So all of a sudden, not only are you a worse golfer, now you have back pain, and we can fix both of those with kind of opening up some hip mobility and that internal rotation on your back.
That's exactly right. So, and you're using the science, you're using a reason where they can help themselves out from a pain standpoint, and a reason they can help themselves out on the course, right? So, I mean, and we just sometimes have to do that. And again, it shouldn't feel salesman-y because you're actually helping them, right? So it's not like you're selling them some like lemon car and you're like, you're upselling them something that's going to give them value that they would have never done on their own. And this is actually a conversation I had with Dr. Mark, who's coming. I think his episode comes out the last week in March. He's like he's the equivalent to like a registered dietitian, but in Canada. So I think they call it something different.
Okay.
But really his focus is on like helping coaches, especially like nutrition-based coaches, like really pitch themselves and like how they do things. And I can tell you that, again, I just told you that I'm bad at like being salesman. He just said, sometimes you have to do it. Right. And part of what you have to do is someone like you can educate your clients, but is that the best way to get the clients? A lot of times you want to sort of inspire on the front end, right? You can educate afterwards, right? So it is imperative that we get the clients inspired, find their pain points, get them active. And then if we trust in our ability, then we can educate and actually help them once we sort of capture them with that inspiration.
Yeah. It's exactly what you were saying before, but like aesthetics, and people want to look a certain way and they're willing to do anything to look a certain way. Yeah. So it's going to be, it's not going to be the best sales call if they're like, I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you're like, yeah, but actually you need internal hip rotation. Like they're not going to be excited to work with you. Yeah. So there is definitely that, like, let's meet them where they're at. And like I always say, like, aesthetics opens the door. Yeah. Like, yeah, I can get you jacked. I know what it takes. I know how to get jacked. Come to the gym. Like, I'll get you jacked. And then you slowly work on, you know what, you could squat more weight if we fix your feet, if we fix, that hip rotation, or if we loosen up your hamstrings a little bit, or we work on mobility.
Totally. Especially because the things you're saying demonstrate that you care. And once they know that you've built that personal side of personal training and that you care, of course they're going to say, yeah, you're right. Like, this person is helping me out. Like, regardless, they're spending this hour with me. They could do anything. If they're taking their time to stop and notice this and say that I need this, they're the expert and they're being helpful. So I know that this is going in the right direction, so to speak.
Yeah. And then, when they do see results, it's amazing. And then you get referrals, and like business gets better because you're the guy that gets results. And you don't need to be salesy
at that point
when people get results.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Ultimately, we do a good job. Word of mouth gets around, and obviously it's good to inspire on the front end, but those referrals will never happen if you don't follow through from inspiration to education to sort of fixing whatever is going on.
Yeah. Nobody who doesn't get results is going to go tell all their friends they should be working with you.
Yeah. But it's funny. I for a while I thought I would just name myself like a gluteologist, because everyone was like, oh, I'm looking for a gluteologist. And then when they would come in, I would just lie to them like, actually, I'm here for like full body health and wellness, not for your glutes, but you're already here. So let's just start the session. You'll trust me afterwards. But
that's really funny. Hey, whatever it takes, a little Trojan horse, get yourself in the door.
So tell us a little bit more about the podcast. Give me the next episode coming up, or the last episode. Tell me a little bit about it, and let my listeners know where they can find it.
Yeah. So it's my girlfriend and I. We co-host. It's called The Deep Life, and you can find it anywhere that there's podcasts. So actually today, the day we're recording this is what I said. So it's my friend Corey and his wife Megan, who own Vitality Human Performance. So he's an excellent trainer. He was a college football player, a lot of similar background. He's also Corey is a full-time police officer, and just opened a gym, and so he's the head trainer. His wife is pregnant. They got married, I think, a year ago, and she's also a coach at the gym. So they have so much going on. Really, really impressive that they're able to sort of juggle all these balls at the same time, do all these things. And we had a really, really good talk about, a lot of the similar ideas that we talked about today, where it's, training is important, but it's the other 23 hours in the day. And how are you taking care of yourself? Are you sleeping? Like, what are you eating? How good is your sleep quality? How are you breathing? What does your day look like? How stressed are you? And how all these little things happen. And you kind of hinted earlier before about how, like, people don't even realize that they don't feel good until they do feel good. And then they realize, their normal wasn't, what could be.
Yeah.
So we talked about that a lot, but we've had, a lot of different episodes, where we've interviewed a bunch of really good guests. We also do, probably about 2/3 of the episodes are just my girlfriend Elise and I just having conversations, which was sort of the catalyst for starting the show. Anyways, we like to have really deep discussions and kind of figure out life, whether it's health, spirituality, mindset, and kind of get to the bottom and ask difficult questions, and question our own beliefs. So we're kind of all over the place. We talk about spirituality. We talk about mindset and mental growth. We talk about nutrition. We talk about training. So yeah, if anybody check it out. You can find it anywhere where you listen to podcasts. It's called The Deep Life. And then our company is Momentum Strength and Wellness, and that's I mentioned before, where we're doing we kind of work together with training, where it's sort of a whole lifestyle thing. Where it's same idea. It's not just the hour you're spending training. It's how are all these other little things you're doing in the day. And we're always talking about creating a lifestyle that supports your goals. And it's the things, eliminating the things that you do throughout the day that are holding you back, and then also improving the things that you're doing every day anyway. So it's, you're breathing obviously all day. So we want to focus on good breathing quality. So you're breathing deeply and through your nose. You're, walking every day. So let's walk with good form, and let's get outside and take advantage of that. Having a meditation practice and eating good quality food, staying hydrated. So all the little things, but then also, training programs and, customized training, customized nutrition, whatever people need.
The podcast, your IG handle and the website will be listed in the description. Dan, thanks so much for joining the TrulyFit Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.